Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael. I'm going to be your host for round about the next 45 minutes. This morning, we're looking at Sage 50 accounts, and specifically, we're looking at the process of running the year end in Sage 50 accounts. So that process that you probably want to put off as long as you possibly can. It feels a bit daunting if you've never run it before, but we're going to show you how easy it can be. The actual year-end process, that sort of clicking on the button essentially to run that year-end is a really simple task. It's probably the tasks surrounding it that you'd be more concerned with. So as I say, hopefully you can stick around for the 45 minutes. If you've run year-end before, you might just feel it's a bit of a reminder today, and you never know, you may feel you pick up a few tips along the way maybe. But you may just go away with that reassurance that your understanding is right, and just as I say, just something to jog your memory. For those that have never run it before, can be really apprehensive about running year end, but nervous about doing it for the first time. Hopefully you go away feeling confident. It's not as bad as you think. It's a really simple task. Anyway, just before we do get started with you all on today's session, a little bit of housekeeping, just in case some of you haven't attended a webinar before. Now, you don't need a microphone for these sessions. You don't need a microphone for any of the webinars we run. If you've got one and you enable it, it will be muted automatically. You can't unmute yourself during the session. So any questions that you have for me today, you will need to pop them into the questions panel. To access that, you just need to click the little, on your taskbar on the right, it's the little speech bubble icon. Give it a click. It'll expand and you'll get access to the box in the bottom right-hand corner. So comments, questions, pop them in there. Click send. Remember to do that. I'm sure we've all had emails, or if you use Microsoft Teams, where you've typed in a message and you think, why haven't I got a response? And you've gone back and you think, oh, I didn't click send. So remember to click send. It'll just pop up on my other screen and I'll try my best to pick those up as we're going through. Hopefully there'll be a little bit of time to pick up any outstanding questions at the end as well. So I'll try my best to answer as many as I can. If anyone wants a copy of today's slides, they're not supposed to be detailed by any stretch of the imagination. It is literally the basic slides that I used today, but they are available via the handout icon. They'll be available throughout this session. Do take that opportunity if you do want them, because you won't get them afterwards. If you do want the detailed steps, that information, sort of step-by-step guide, etc., you'll find that available from our help center. The handout is not supposed to replace that. So we'll get into the help center and you'll find the detail. There'll be an email sent out afterwards that will contain links to a recording of today's session. So if you do need a bit of a recap, just watch out for that one. It'll include links so you can register for future webinars. So if it's your first one with us, and you think, well, good idea, I'll sign up for some more, just watch out for that link. And also our previous recordings as well. So we must be well over 100 now available. So if you've missed any topics, you can't wait for the live session coming round again, then do check out the recordings. Right, okay, let's get started then. So let's have a look at what we're going to be covering in today's session. Start with a poll in just a moment. We'll then pick up on some common questions in relation to year end, just to almost like nip those in the bud before anyone starts typing them in. We'll then run through a series of demonstrations. So I've broken it into 3 parts today: preparing for year end, running the year end. So we'll see what that actual wizard looks like in the software, and also those post year end checks. And we'll also mention a little bit of optional tasks as well. Now, the optional tasks are actually covered by separate webinars. So I'll just tell you a little bit about them. And if you do want more information, obviously check out the recordings link. And you'll find all the recordings relating to those optional tasks in the year-end section. I want to touch on company archives as well, which is a session I think we're running this week as well as a separate live webinar. And then just right at the end, we'll explain a little bit more about the additional support that you've got available, give you an idea of some of those upcoming webinars as well. Right, before we do get started, I just want to pop a quick poll on your screen. So if you don't mind, I'll quickly launch that. So quick question for you. Now this is going to be, I suppose, primarily for those of you that have run a year end in Sage 50 before. So how long after your year end are you actually likely to actually run the year-end process in Sage 50 accounts? Is it within 1 month? Is it somewhere between 1 and 2 months, 3 to 6, or maybe more than 6 months? So I'll just wait till I get a decent percentage of you having voted for that. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just to see, I suppose, what most people would normally do. So it's not a test, this one. It's just based on your experience of using Sage historically. How long do you wait before running that year end? Right, just about got nice round figures on the poll today. So let me just share that with you as well. Other way around. So we've got about 33%, so about a third of you will run that year end within about a month. We've got about 17% of you somewhere between 3 to 6 months, and half of you will wait 6 months or more. And as I mentioned, there's no right or wrong answer to that one. And if I just hide those results and go back to my slides, it's links to that first question that we've got there. So this is probably one of the most common questions that I get asked when I run the year end. Do I need to run the year end before I start processing in the new financial year? Or questions relating to that. Can I just continue as normal? I haven't run year end yet. Can I do a VAT return? So basically, you don't need to stop processing at all. You just continue as normal. So enter your transactions, enter invoices, create records, do sales orders, purchase orders, bank reconciliations, bank feeds, you name it, VAT returns as well for that matter. And also, if anyone runs the month-end option, you would continue with that as well. So you continue with all of those processes as normal. Nothing should change. You get the odd prompt here and there, which you can tick the box to say, right, don't give me this message anymore. I'm aware that I've gone into the new financial year. But other than that, you continue as normal and you come back to run that year end as and when you're ready. So half of you voted for 6 months or more. So no need to stop processing. Back in the late 90s, if anyone was using Sage then, when I started Sage on the support team all those years ago, on version 2, you did have to stop processing. You had to run that year end before you could get into the next financial year. But these days, you just continue as normal. So that's been like that since version 3. So nothing to worry about. So it's very common, as you saw from those results I shared from that poll, to continue 6 months into your new financial year. You come back to run that year end as and when you're ready. So please don't feel the pressure. Now, if anyone thinking, well, I need to be able to run reports for my new financial year. So I haven't run year end yet, but I want a profit and loss. Check out our webinar recordings. There's a great webinar that I run now and again on running your management reports for a future financial year, but also a historic one as well. So do check that out. As far as preparing for year end is concerned, link at the bottom if you've downloaded the slides. Obviously, these links it's easy to find that information. The other common question as well, I say it's a common question, it's one of the ones that sticks out a little bit here and there, is can I shorten or extend my financial year? Now, by default, Sage 50 accounts will run for a 12-month financial year. So if you do need to shorten it or extend it, maybe you've been advised to do so by your accountant, maybe there's a tax benefit for that, or to bring you in line with like sister companies in the same group, then if you need to do that, there is a process for each one that you would need to follow. They're slightly different. Much easier to actually shorten your financial year than extend it, a little less involved. But if you do need that information, then it's available from our help centre. Right, let's get stuck into some demonstrations so you can actually see the year end in process. So we'll run through again those 3 sort of sections that I broke it down into. We're going to start with preparing for year end. Now, not much to demonstrate as far as preparing for year end is concerned. The best advice I can give you is put it off as long as possible to ensure that you've completed all the processing. The less time you give it, the more likely you are to have missed something, or you'll then probably identify a mistake that maybe you need to correct. So the longer you can leave it, the more likely you are to have completed everything. Very a common question, sort of, I've run the year end and I've discovered that I haven't entered this supplier's invoice. If you leave it a month or more, you're probably going to stumble across that, if nothing else. Probably a supplier chasing you for payment, and you think, oh, haven't even entered that one. We've missed, for whatever reason, we've missed it. So complete all your processing where possible. It's not the end of the world if you haven't. So again, our support team would be able to offer advice on that. There's information in our help center on that one as well. But if the longer you leave it, the more likely you are to have completed everything that you need to for that financial year. Next, check your chart of accounts and resolve any problems. You can do this at any time. Now, if you're familiar with year end, you'll probably think, well, actually, I can do that during the year end process. And you'll see that today. But actually, it doesn't check it in as detail as just going into the nominal codes chart of accounts and checking your chart of accounts that way. If you're not familiar with the chart of accounts, or what I'm about to cover, the management reports as well, again, there are detailed webinar recordings on that. We run them quite regularly as well as live sessions. But check your chart of accounts. If nothing else, after today's session, go in and check your chart of accounts. It's something you can do at any time. I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. The other thing that you will do before you actually come to run the year end is you probably run some reports. Now, there's not a definitive list on you need to run this report, that report. There are well over 900 reports available in Sage 50. So which ones you will actually need, probably the best person to speak to is your accountant. You might even just leave it to your accountant to do that. Might be something your accountant, they come in and run the year end for you. But common reports, things like your trial balance, profit and loss, balance sheet, probably age debtors, age creditors. If you use a stock area, you might run stock valuation reports, that type of thing. So while we can give you a little bit of advice on which ones you run, there's not that definitive list. And then finally, and again, this is a task that is available within the year-end wizard, check your data and back up. I would hate you to put off your year-end and think, right, I've put it off as long as I can. Today's the day. You've built up some courage and you think, right, I'm going to run that year-end. You get to the year-end and you check your data and in the year-end wizard, and it comes across an issue and you think, ooh, what do I do now? And it just stops you in your tracks. So checking your data and backing up is something that you should be doing regularly. We normally recommend, if you're using Sage every day, that you do it every day. So let's just have a quick look at some of those tasks. If I just switch across to my screen, so you'll see my desktop in just a moment there. So you should be able to see what I'm doing on my screen. I'm in Sage 50. Today I'm using version 30. Just looking at that. Yeah, I'm in version 30 today. The process that I'm going to be covering, it's pretty much the same on any version and any level of Sage 50 for that matter. I'll point out any differences as we go through. Now, the first one I mentioned was checking your chart of accounts. Nice, easy task, this one. Into nominal codes on the left there. And then on your toolbar at the top, you've got this chart of accounts option. Now, you might have more than one chart of accounts. You might have different chart of accounts layouts for different purposes. When you're running the likes of your profit and loss, you want different levels of detail. Again, that's covered in one of our webinar recordings if you are interested in finding out more about it. But all you really need to do, and a bit of a shortcut here as well, if any of them say partial in brackets as part of that description, it means there are errors in your chart of accounts, and we'd recommend that you try and fix them. But to check your chart of accounts, easiest thing to do, just highlight whichever layout you want to check, click edit at the top, and then all you need to do, you've got this check option up in the top left corner. Now, if anyone's on a really old version for whatever reason, you will have a check option along the bottom. Does the same thing. So you're just going to click check, and hopefully this is what you're going to get. Information message pop up, no errors found in this chart of accounts, and you would just click OK, and that's you done. It's going to look for a whole host of potential issues with your chart of accounts. Now, if I just quickly create an error, so I'll just amend a range here so that we do have some missing nominal codes then. And when I click check, I'll just save the changes. So when I click check, this is what you'd get if there were any issues. So instead of saying information, no errors to report, you're going to get a warning, incomplete chart of accounts. You click OK, gives you an option to preview it. You would just run that and it would give you a report. Now, if I just zoom in, I can hardly see that on my monitor myself. So if I just zoom in, this is probably the most common type of error that you're going to get. A certain nominal code is not represented in your chart. Now, what that would mean is if I've reused that particular nominal code, so these are all sales nominal codes in the 4,000 range. So if I'd posted a transaction to that and that nominal code has a balance, if I was running up like say a profit and loss report and I use this specific chart of accounts layout, it would mean that the likes of nominal 4001 isn't going to be picked up, and therefore it means my profit and loss figures are going to be incorrect. So you want to make sure you've got no problems. It can have a knock-on effect, obviously, where your balance sheet doesn't balance as well. So you want to correct any issues that you've got. Now you will find all of the errors, the type of error that you potentially could have. You'll find that detailed in our Help Center article if needed. You've got the help link at the top here as well. Or if you're just working in the software, if you want help on whatever you're working on, remember you can just press F1. So if I do that, press F1, accesses the Help Center, and it'll start pulling through the type of information that I'm likely to need for the area that I'm working in. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set that back to 4099. If you make any changes whatsoever, even though you might be 100% confident, again, just click check. Yes to save any changes. And again, this is what we want. Information, no errors found in this chart of accounts. So we just OK that. Now, the other thing I mentioned was running reports. So again, remember, there's not that definitive list. The one bit of advice I would give you for your reports is to take copies of them. Now, some reports, it doesn't matter what financial year you're in, you'll still be able to run them. So the likes of an age debtors, age creditors, you'll still be able to run that irrespective of whether you've run a year end or not. But the likes of your trial balance, your profit and loss, and your balance sheet, a bit more restrictive on those ones. So what I would say, if you think, right, well, we've done everything we need to, we're going to generate our year-end reports. Let's start with just pick on a trial balance as an example. When we run that report, we've got various options. So we can print it, we can preview it, file it, email it. The one thing I would say is take a copy of those reports. So send it to file, click run. And what I'll do is on my desktop, I've created a folder called Sage Reports. And in there, I've created a subfolder called 2023 year end. So this set of data that I'm using runs January 23 to December 2023. So I'm going to pop it in that folder, give it a name. Put the end of the financial year on as well. And then I'll just save it. It saves it as a PDF. There are other formats available, but PDF, it will default to that one. And I'll just save it. OK, that's to say that's when I wanted to run it up to. So end of December 2023 in this instance. So I'm nearly a full 12 months just about beyond the end of that financial year. Not a problem. Anyway, so that's that report done. Just means I'm building up a bit of an archive of those reports that I've generated. So I'm building up copies. And it just means that, if I needed them, so I've run year end and someone said, well, where's the trial balance from the last financial year? If you've got a copy of that somewhere, you could get it from a company archive. We'll touch on that a little bit later. But it does mean that if I just go into this folder where I've stored the copies, and then I've got that PDF copy there. So I just do whatever I want with it. I can view it, I can email it. Obviously, I can't amend it because it's just a PDF, but it means I've got nice, easy access to that. So you might have a series of reports in this folder. Right, let's get back to Sage. If I can find the right button, there we go. And then the final thing I mentioned, I'll touch on this a bit more when we come on to running the year end in just a moment, is checking your data and backing up. So again, if you're not familiar with that process, let me know. So just pop a message in the chat box if you're not familiar with checking your data and backing up. It's something that you'll be prompted to do when you close out of Sage. It's something that you can schedule, and it will be scheduled, so it happens in the background automatically anyway. But make sure you're doing it. It's nothing worse for me than someone saying, right, my PC's crashed and actually I need to replace it. I need to, you've replaced the PC, you've installed your software, and they go, right, how do I get my data back? And all my backups go stored on that PC. If you can't access those backups, pretty useless. You possibly need to start again. So don't just store your backups on your hard disk either. Store them on another PC. Get some cloud storage or like a memory, like a USB memory stick, that type of thing. So taking them away from where your actual live data is stored as well, just in case. Cover your back. Anyway, that's sort of the preparation stage. What I'm going to do now is we're going to get into the running of year end. So we'll quickly pop back to the slides. Again, remember, keep your questions coming if you've got any. So the actual running of the year end itself is what I would term the easy part. The stressful part, I suppose the urgency, etc., is all to do with preparing for year end, making sure that you have entered everything. But the actual running of the year end, when we access it, which we'll see in a moment, it launches this window that you can see a screenshot of. Various options in there, which are all straightforward. I'll run you through those in just a second. It lets you obviously check your data, check your chart of accounts, backup, there's archive options, etc. So we'll switch back to my screen. We'll just run through that wizard to access this and show you what it looks like. Now, one thing to be aware of is that to run year end, you will need your colleagues to log out of Sage, or if you've got multiple companies, they will at least need to be logged out of the company that you're about to run the year end of. Otherwise, you'll get that message saying you can't do this because such and such is logged in. Excuse me. So make sure they are out. And all we do to access that area is go to Tools, Period End, and then Year End. Now it does prompt me. Obviously, I've got some other, I've got the nominal codes list open in the background there. So I'm just going to close out of that. So I'll just click yes to that prompt, and it launches that year-end wizard. Now, if anyone has been running Sage for many years, you might be thinking, well, do you not need to go into settings and change the program date beforehand? You don't. That's a really, really old step, that one, that you've not had to do for many, many years. Just Tools, Period End, Year End. Spare me one moment there, please. Excuse me. Right, okay, so we're going to run through the options just to explain what they are. When we go into year end, it'll obviously tell me what in this case, what my financial year is. So it's telling me January 23 to December 2023. This section, prepare for year end, really straightforward. If you've followed my advice, you've already checked your data, you've checked your chart of accounts, and you've taken a backup before you even come into this screen. And literally, if you have just done that as well, you don't necessarily need to take another one just at this stage. If you do, I'll run through it just so you can see it, because it's really quick on mine. I've just got, 3,641 transactions, so that's a tiny set of data, that one. So I'll click check data. It runs through automatically. You'll see it's nearly instantaneous on mine. If you've got hundreds of thousands of transactions, just let it run. If you need to, grab yourself a cuppa while it's running through, but it tells me no problems to report on data files. Now, if there were any errors, warnings, comments, you can click on the tabs down the left, and that will explain or give you a bit more detail of what the error warning or comment is. And armed with that information, you can click the help option and you can search for that error warning or comment to find out what it is and what you need to do about that. But we don't want any surprises at this stage when we come to run year end. You click check data and oh, I've got an error. You don't want that, so make sure you are checking your data regularly. Now, no problems in my case, so I just close out of that one. That's nice and easy. You've got an option to check your chart of accounts. Again, if you've been following my advice, give it a click anyway. It's a really quick check, that one. But shouldn't throw up any surprises. This is what you'll get if you followed my advice. You've checked your chart of accounts and you've already checked for any errors. Now, this is only checking for one type of error, this check chart of accounts option. It's looking for any nominal codes that are missing from your chart of accounts. It's not looking for ranges that overlap or that are included within each other, or it's not looking at the floating ranges to make sure they mirror each other. It's just looking for missing nominal codes. So it tells me all nominal codes are represented in the chart. So we just okay that. Third option, backup. So take a backup. Again, if you've just done one before coming into year end, you don't necessarily need to take another one. But again, so quick on mine, I'll just show you what that looks like. So we click it. It's the same backup wizard that you're going to get when you exit the software. Now, at this stage, some people like to include all file types. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to include data files only. Obviously, you can choose what you want to include. Normally, an all files type backup, you'd probably use that. You might do it once a month at the end of the month and just back up absolutely everything, put that to one side. You would probably do it if you were maybe switching PCs, just to make sure that you're taking everything with you. But I'm going to back up data files only. What I'll also do is I'm going to make sure that I pop it into that folder. So I'm going to save a copy of it in that 2023 year-end reports folder that we created earlier. Now, your default file name for a backup, it will always say Sage Accounts, and then it will have your company name, which in my case is called Demo Year End. It'll have your current date in, obviously it does it in reverse order, and then it will have the time in there where you access that when you access the year end option. So I'm just going to call it, let's call it Sage, and I'll call it year end 2023. So we'll just okay that. Let it run through. Again, it's incredibly quick on mine because it's tiny. Tells me the backup has been successful. We okay that. And we're back to that year-end wizard. So first three options, absolute doddle. Fourth option is the archive location. Now, this will be ticked by default. Leave it ticked. Archive location, you can go into it, you can have a look at it. You can't change the path. It will always put it on the same path as where your actual data is held. So you can see on mine, my data is just held on my C drive. Program data, Sage Accounts 2024, and it's my company one, and it creates a subfolder within it called archive. So I can't change anything there. If you're on a network, then it's going to put your network path in and have something like archives on the end. You've got a description. Now mine's defaults picks up year end 2023. That's fine, happy with that. And also my archive folder. So I'm happy with that as well. So no need to change anything there. Can if you want, but no need to. So I just okay that. So basically, we've checked the data, we've checked the chart of accounts, we've taken a backup, and I'm leaving that option ticked. I'll come back to archives a little bit later. So first section, really straightforward, nothing to worry about there. Then we've got these options, these year-end options. Now there are three options in this section. There's the first option. It relates to budgets. Now, if you don't use budgets and you've got no intention of using budgets at all, then you don't need to do anything with that. If you do use the budget options, then tick the box. You'll get this window pop up. Now, it may be the same, it may be slightly different depending on the level of software you're using and also the budget options that you've got set within your software. Now, what this is doing for those of you that do use budgets is it's saying, right, for the new financial year, which in my case would be January 2024 to December 2024, what budgets do you want to set? What do you want to use for your budget figures? Do you want to use your actual figures? So your actual like sales figures, for instance, do you want to use those as the budgets for next year, just so you can compare? Do you just want to use the existing budgets, just leave them in place as they are? If anyone used the advanced budgeting methods, there is an option when you're using the advanced budgeting methods to set a forecast year. Obviously, if you set a forecast year, that's probably what you'd want to use. Makes sense. Just bear me one moment there, please. Sorry about that. Glass of spilt water right across my desk. Bit of a crisis there, so sorry about that. Right, I think we're all right. Hopefully you can still hear me. Hasn't destroyed my laptop. Right, okay. So we're just talking about the budgets option there. So if you do use budgets, it makes sense that you'd want to set your budgets for the new financial year. So do you want to base it on actuals, the existing budgets, or do you want to use the forecast option? Now you've got that for nominal and department budgets, but you've also got stock budgets as well. So again, do you want to base next year's budgets on your actuals, or do you just want to use the existing budgets, just leave them in place? Entirely up to you. You'll find more information about these options in the help option here at the top. And if you want to find out more about nominal and department budgets, there's a series of webinars that we've got recorded, and those are available. Remember, links included on your follow-up email. So choose your options. Now, even if you're not using budgets yet, and you think, well, I might use them next year, I might start using them, that's when we're planning to do it from. Don't worry about whether you tick it or not. So it just gives you, it's a way of almost like speeding up the entry of budgets and the setting of budgets. If you've never used them before and you think, well, we might use it, you can still amend your budget figures, irrespective of whether you've ticked that box or not. So you'll still be able to go into your new financial year and say, right, well, actually for my sales, I want it to be this figure. So don't worry about that. Right, next option is, it says the date to appear on your year-end journals, last day of the current year, transferring profit and loss balances to retained earnings. So this date here, which I've got set, or it's picked up the date, 31st of December 2023. It's the last day of your financial year that you're running the year end for. It will let you overtype that. No need to do that. I've never come across a valid reason yet why you would want to change that. You've always been able to do it, but nobody's ever come up with a valid reason why you would want to change that. So just leave it as it is. What it's used for is when you run the year end, a number of things will happen, such as your financial year will advance. But what the software will do is it will post a series of journals. You'll see those journals listed in a moment. And it will do those journals to clear down your year-end balances. And it will post those using this date. And you would always want that to be on your year-end date. So leave it as is. The third option in this section is what we refer to as the lock date option. So it says here, prevent new transactions from being entered before this date, usually the first day of the new financial year. So what this option is used for, you can set it, first of all, in three places. One, just going into your settings menu, and you've got an option called lock date settings. If anyone runs the month end, you'll have a same option as this, tick box and the ability to enter a date, and also obviously in the year end itself. Now what lock date is used for is so that you can control who can and can't backdate transactions. So if you've run things like your year-end reports and you've run the year-end itself, what you don't want anyone doing is then saying, oh, I'm going to backdate a transaction to 2023 or even earlier. You might even be partway through your financial year. So let's say I've run a month end for October 2024 already. And I think, right, well, I've generated a P&L, a trial balance, a balance sheet. I've passed that across to the owner of the business, the manager. I've shared that information with my bank manager, for instance, or accountant. You don't want that information to change. So that's where lock date comes in. It enables you to control who can and can't backdate that information. Again, there's a very detailed webinar recording purely on that option. So again, watch out for your follow-up email and it will include the link you need. But this can be switched on and off at any time just by going to settings, lock date settings, and you can advance the date or change it to whatever you want. You could even switch it on, and if you don't like the way it works, you can switch it off. So far, what have we done in this screen? We've clicked a few buttons, nice and easy, the top ones. We've chosen the budget options. We've left the date as is. And then I've ticked the box for lock date. Again, that's optional, that one. And it's just picked up my start of my financial year. I could set it to another date if I wanted to. We've got a summary at the bottom. And we're now ready to actually run the year end itself. So this is where normally when people contact our support team, they're running it for the first time. They just want guiding through the process. And you say, right, well, that's the options. We're ready. You click run year end, get a confirmation message. You're about to run the year end for, in my case, January 23 to December 23. Do you want to continue? You click yes to that prompt. You'll get another prompt in relation to your chart of accounts. So you just click yes to that. And it then prompts me for the year-end report. Now, you might find that you get a progress bar at that point. You just need to let it run through. Just let it go. If you've got hundreds of thousands of transactions and maybe you run across a network, you might find you just need to let it run. Some people will, because they run across slow networks, they've got hundreds of thousands, if not millions of transactions, you might find that some people will literally just set it away before they go home. Let it run overnight. But just let it run. Don't crash out or anything like that. Just let it run, that progress bar. So anyway, we get our year-end report. So I'm just going to OK that. Now, I did get a message pop up there. I'll come back to the message in a moment. I just want to pick up on this year-end report that gets generated first of all. So here we've got a list of the journals that get posted as part of that year end. So you'll notice they're all dated, just end of December 2023, that year end date that was listed. So that's my last day of my financial year. So we've got a series of journals. They should all be against your profit and loss nominal codes. So nominal 4,000, it's my sales nominal code. It posted JD. So the JD is because the year-end balance would have been a credit balance. And in this case, it would have been £183,881.08. That would have been as a credit balance as at year end. So what it does is it posts a journal debit for that amount to that nominal code to essentially zero down that year-end balance. If you've got other balances already posted into your new financial year, that's fine. They're untouched. They'll be fine. It's just that whatever that year-end balance was. It does that for each of your profit and loss nominal codes. And then if we scroll right the way to the bottom, you'll find there's the balancing entry, which is either your retained profit or your loss. That will be posted to your retained earnings nominal code 3200 by default. You can save a copy of that report, or even print it out, just one page in my case. I don't use a massive list of nominal codes on this set of data. You might find it's 2 or 3 pages max. Depends how many nominal codes have a year-end balance. If I'm happy with that, I just close out. This is the message that did pop up. If you had your eagle eyes on, you saw this message pop up. It tells me the year-end process for the financial year ending 31st of December 2023 has been completed. And it tells me what my new financial year is. In this case, January 24 to December 24. So I just okay that. I'm back in my software. The one thing I would say at this stage, back it up again. Check your data, take it back up. May seem overkill, but there are valid reasons why you would want to do that. So check your data, back it up at that point. But other than that, that's the year end complete. Now, a lot of people expect year end to clear out old information, get rid of your older transactions or your old customers. It doesn't do that. The financial year, it's going to change your financial year date. It advances it by 12 months, and it will post that series of journals to clear those year-end balances. It doesn't remove any information. Excuse me. So that's the year-end complete. Normally when we do guide people through that process, they'll go, all right, is that it? Is that all there is to it? Yeah, it's a simple task. So hopefully, if you've never run one before, you're feeling a bit more confident now. What I'm going to mention now, though, is I'm just going to quickly pop back to the slides just for a moment. And I want to quickly mention some of the optional tasks. Now, I did mention just there that some people expect the year end to do these tasks for them. So removing older transactions, it doesn't do that. Expecting it to delete customers and suppliers, nominal bank records, it doesn't do that. If you want to get rid of older information, what we would term optional tasks, again, when you get your follow-up email, it will include a link to our recorded webinars. In that year-end section, there is details on clearing your audit trail, clearing other records as well, but they are optional tasks. That's the key word on that slide, optional. It's not something you have to do. So you don't have to get rid of old customers. You don't have to get rid of your older transactions. They are optional. You can if you want to, but they are optional. So watch out for that follow-up email and do watch those recordings if you are interested. The other one I want to quickly mention is company archives. Now, that was a little tick box we had when we were in the year-end wizard, where we looked at the folder name, etc. So the fourth option in that top section. A company archive, what is that? Well, we do run a separate webinar on it. We've got one of those coming up soon. So do get yourself registered. Watch out for that on the webinar timetable if you are interested. But basically what it does is when you're about to run year end, if you imagine your data at that point, or my data was in 2023, I might have already entered 2024 transactions, doesn't matter. But whatever the state of play of my data was as at that point in time, it takes a copy of that and it creates what we term a company archive. So imagine you've got your live data, what I'm looking at when I ran year end there, and then you've got almost like a copy of it. So a copy of that data that was in the position where I hadn't run the year end on it just yet. So a bit like what I had at the start of the webinar. It takes a copy of that as well. And that archive, you can access at any point via your file menu, open company archive, and you just log into it. And it's an exact copy of your data as it stood at that point in time. So that would include things like usernames and passwords, but all your customers, suppliers, products, invoices, transactions, everything as at that point in time. It's an archive, it's read-only. It's intended for reference purposes. Should you need to go back to that point in time just to view any information. It's there for reporting purposes as well. So if you didn't take a copy of your likes of your trial balance report that I suggested earlier, but if you didn't do that and someone says, oh, I need a trial balance for the end of the year for 2023, then I could log into that archive, and because that was the state of the play at the time, I can run that report. But again, if you want to find out more about that, do get yourself registered for our company archives webinar. You'll find out a lot of detail provided on that one. A lot of people get confused between company archives and backing up. So an archive is just an exact copy of your data at that point in time. So you can't make changes to it. It's read only. It's there for reference purposes. Right. Let's pop on to make sure I've got the right option selected. So if you've got any final questions, please key them in now. Again, just click that little speech bubble icon on the taskbar on the right, and then you'll have that little box in the bottom corner. Pop in your question or your comment, click send, and I'll try and pick those up in just a moment. Loads of information available from our help center. When you're working in your software, you can just click help in the top corner, top right corner, or you can just press F1. Or if you prefer it, just open your browser, go to sage.co.uk/help. You'll then need to choose your product, so Sage 50 accounts, and then it will take you into a screen similar to what you've got on the screenshot there. You'll be able to browse through the various options. There's a one specifically for financial year end, but you can search for questions as well. So if you're looking for advice on a specific option, you'll find guides, webinars, videos, options for getting in touch with our support team. You'll find it all in there. It's a great resource for you. For some of the upcoming webinars, again, links will be included for these on the follow-up email, so you get that in around about an hour's time. This month, we've got sessions coming up on invoice payments, company archives, as I just mentioned, filters and quick search, and also we're covering the VAT return and the rest with it by the end of this month as well. Into 3 parts, that one now, just to break it down into manageable chunks. We're also running a series of webinars for corrections. After all, that's probably one of the biggest areas that we support people with. So nobody ever rings up and says, oh, my software is working really well, or my customers, everything balances. It's always, right, I've got a problem with this. How do I go about fixing that? So we've got a series of webinars coming up for corrections. We've got a session this afternoon looking at customers and suppliers. So if you need to, write off a balance, or you need to process a refund, that type of thing, we'll cover that one. Journals we're going to be looking at, I think that one's tomorrow. VAT transactions later in the week. 2 brand new sessions next week, invoices and orders, and also the stock area. 2 separate sessions that we'll be looking at correcting those. We've then got 2 sessions coming up for corrections relating to your bank reconciliation and bank feeds, but also just basic bank transactions as well. So if you are interested, get yourself signed up. Links on your follow-up email. You get that around about an hour's time. Again, they're all free to attend. Right, now if I can find the right option, we'll move on. If anyone prefers to go down the one-to-one route for training, now this would be beneficial. It might just be for yourself. It might be for you and a number of colleagues. That can be arranged as well. This is a chargeable service again now, so we stopped doing this for quite some time. We've now reintroduced it because the demand's there again. If you are interested, all you need to do to arrange that or to set the ball rolling with that is just drop us an email. So address is on the screen there, UKI Sage University @sage.com. We just sort of get the ball rolling. What is it you want support on? What's the type of training that you require? Now that brings me to the end of the webinar today. So I think we've covered everything we needed to. If anyone has any questions, I've not got anything outstanding at the moment. If you've got any final questions, pop them in there. By all means, drop me an email. You can always reply to the webinar email if you want to. That'll be addressed direct to myself. And I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. Otherwise, if you need to speak to someone urgently though, get in touch with our support team. Let me thank you for coming along. Appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed it and you found it useful, and hopefully you're going away feeling a lot more confident. If you've never run it before, hopefully your confidence is much higher. If you have run a year end before, hopefully you're just sat there thinking, yeah, it's what I thought. Nothing to worry about. So hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you've got any comments, feedback, thoughts, ideas that you'd like to share with us, there is an opportunity to submit that. There'll be a little survey pop up as you leave today's session. You can take a minute to do that. Greatly appreciate it, even if it's just to give us a score. So it should pop up as the webinar ends. And your follow-up email will be with you in around about an hour's time. So watch out for that one. Always the same links that you need to access the registration page and the recording. So keep them handy, maybe bookmark the pages if necessary. Right, I've still got nothing outstanding, so I think we'll just end the webinar just at that point. Once again, many thanks for coming along, and hopefully I'll see you on some other sessions soon. Many thanks.